Communities in various parts of the country are counting their losses after heavy rains left a path of death and destruction in their wake. In KwaZulu-Natal, multiple people have lost their lives. Now, to discuss this, I'm joined by Dr. Elias Sithole, head of the disaster management sector. Dr. Sithole, I appreciate your time this afternoon. Would you provide an update on the current situation in KZN regarding the recent floods?
Good day to the viewers as well. Yes, thank you very much. Let me also send the condolences to the families who have lost their loved ones and family members. Yes, as the MEC for Human Settlement also indicated, some of the work which government is already bringing to those affected communities, but also from our side as a National Disaster Management Center, we work very closely with the provinces and the municipalities to make sure that those affected communities are being assisted.
So what immediate actions have been implemented to support the displaced members of the community?
Yeah, in a situation where we have communities who have been displaced as a result of the floods, we do work with Human Settlement very closely so that Human Settlement can assist those affected communities with the temporary residential units. But also we work with NGOs so that as and when we relocate those affected communities, we're able to assist those affected communities. Social Development Department will come on board, bringing the NGOs to assist those affected communities.
Now, I want to touch a little bit on a specific case or specific cases. We learned of the learner who died while trying to cross a river. And I suppose the important thing is to establish is there alternative, was there a safe crossing space that this learner didn't use in that drowning? Is there now a bridge or a safe crossing place for learners in this particular instance?
Yeah, maybe not to zoom into the specific case, but I will talk to it. I think that kind of situation, we also tend to find it in other provinces. So I would then say, coming to a question to say, those kind of cases are cases which I think as we move forward, we have to look it very close to say where communities or children have to cross the river, and we need then to build those temporary structures. We in some of the instances, we work with the SNDF so that they're able to assist with those temporary bridges in terms of the emergencies. So those are the areas we'll then focus as we move forward and see how best we can bring temporary structures or maybe engage the communities and say if there is a crossing, either the bridge or a structure next to the communities, to say maybe during these flooded times, the kids they must actually cross those areas. If those structures they doesn't exist, then we need then to find a way as government to bring those resources closer to the community.
Now, as disaster management, your responsibility is not really to build infrastructure, but obviously to manage the safety of people when situations such as this happen. I'd like to imagine that there've been a number of conversations, Dr. Sithole, that have happened in KZN over the last few years, because in the last 3 or 4 years there have been numerous floods that have occurred. Has there been any development that's been made in as far as dealing with infrastructure to try and alleviate some of these challenges around flooding?
Yeah, maybe also let me indicate that in some of the instances, you tend to find that the area becomes flooded because of the drainage system has not been clean. So there are processes which were put in place to bring manpower so that we are able to augment the capacity of the municipality to assist in terms of the cleaning of the drainage system. Number two, you tend to find that in some of the areas, they've got low-lying bridges. And those are the issues which we have been engaging other departments and see how best we could resolve these issues. I know that these are big projects, but we want to take those small baby steps and try resolving these kind of challenges of low-lying bridges, because one incident or one death is too many. So there are those kind of conversation which are taking place. We are correct. Our role as a disaster management is to make sure that we coordinate all the stakeholders to come and sit around the table and discuss this matter and start putting the boots on the ground, and we resolve these problems.
Dr. Sithole, just outline your work for us prior to disaster. Right now, in the event of a disaster, we're pretty all fair with what it is that happens. But one of the things that we've learned is that there are many homes that are built on slopes, for instance, which enhance the likelihood of disaster occurring. So before the rainy season or prior to disaster, what sort of work are you doing to try and mitigate or avert some of these disasters that we are experiencing?
Yeah, prior to a disaster or disasters, we do what we call it a disaster assessment, or rather, if I can use a technical word, hazard assessment, which means we go to particular or an area, we assess that area in terms of the vulnerability to any hazard, either the fire or the floods. If we discover that those communities, they are, let's say, vulnerable to floods, as an example, we'll then engage the municipality and say, is there a way which we can implement in that area so that at least we relocate the community? Sometimes it's not easy to relocate a settlement, but then we need to come up with some mechanism to control floods if it happens, it rains during summer seasons. That's one of the parts of the work which we do as disaster management. Then we bring other stakeholders and say, if we have to come up with a mechanism to control the floods in that area because we can't relocate that area or a settlement, then we need to bring those in. Then we control the floods in that area. Unfortunately, in some of the instances, yes, infrastructure was built donkeys of years ago. Now things have changed. Climate change is upon us. We need to make sure that we build better infrastructure in those areas where our communities reside. But then it's not going to be something which we do overnight. It might take some time, but there is mechanism which we put in place, working with other departments to resolve this kind of problem. We have identified the problem. We know about the problem. Now it's about putting those activities on the ground so that we're able to resolve these issues of floods.
Now, I just want to go back to April 2022, where we had the most disastrous of floods in KZN, and that's almost 3 years ago in a few weeks. Just what work has been done since that disaster that we can track to say that the government, the provincial government of KZN, has made a huge amount of progress, or some progress in dealing with the issues, or some of the lessons that have been learnt during that time have manifest in certain infrastructure developments?
Yeah, there's a lot of work which we've been doing in that space. It's not only the eThekwini Metro. 2 weeks ago, I met the Japanese agency. They've been also doing an assessment in that area as well, because they've got interest in terms of the business which are happening in this as well. So the embassy, they've also been involved there. There's a project which they're implementing in eThekwini to make sure that challenges which were experienced during 22 floods, they don't happen in the future. There's a lot of infrastructure which has been repaired by eThekwini Metro, but as we move forward, we as disaster management will also come with other activities or some of the mitigation strategies to prevent these disasters moving forward. Maybe lastly on that point, G20, South Africa is the presidency of G20. And eThekwini will be hosting one of the working group in relation to disaster risk reductions. So through that kind of activity of G20, one of the metros, of course, other municipalities will benefit across the country, but it's going to be one of the municipalities where some of actions coming up from G20 will be actually implemented in eThekwini as I'll call it a pilot project, and thereafter some of the municipality will also benefit. So there's a lot of things which we are going to do in eThekwini to deal with issues of disaster management and also lesson learned coming out from the reports and studies as a result of the floods, 22 floods in eThekwini.
Dr. Elias Sithole, head of the Disaster Management Centre, walking us through work that's been done in KZN, particularly by the eThekwini municipality around the recent floods in which a number of individuals lost their lives. And also just keeping track on what work has been done since those disastrous floods of 2022.